what's really important with Isthmus Dining Company was that I kind of close that gap between the customer and the chef and, really be able to go out and talk, when I do these nomadic restaurants, to go out and talk to all the customers that come in, really let them know what they're eating, why I cooked it, how I cooked it, and just really become closer to the customer and just kind of, just bridge that gap.
Hello! Welcome to The Corner Table, a podcast about food and drink in Madison, produced by the Capital Times. A few years ago, Chef Rob Grisham left the world of restaurant kitchens and founded Isthmus Dining Company, a nomadic restaurant that never stays in one place for too long. About a quarter of his dinners are in private homes, and the rest are pop-ups in spots like Masha Tea Company, Gibbs Bar, the underground space on Allen Street, the former Banzo Shuk on Williamson, and Taliesin Preservation out in Spring Green. I am Lindsay Christians, food writer for the Cap Times, and on this week's episode, I spoke with Rob about the freedom this ever-moving company has offered him and how it has changed the way he cooks. Give a listen. Welcome, Rob.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming in.
You're very welcome.
So, first of all, tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do.
My name is Rob Grisham. I am the chef owner of Isthmus Dining Company, which is a nomadic restaurant concept based here in Madison.
Why do you call it a nomadic restaurant concept? What does that mean?
It basically just means that I can't afford a real restaurant, and I go cook in other people's kitchens and pay them money for it.
Is it like a pop-up?
Yeah, it's definitely like a pop-up. Sometimes I'll do, multiple days at a time, or like in-home dinners as well, or even some cooking classes every now and then. So it just depends on the occasion.
Why did you decide to start Isthmus Dining Company a couple of years ago?
Well, I was I kind of wanted to do, being a chef, every chef kind of has their own idea or concept of, that they want to execute. And I just wasn't really finding what I, needed or was inspired by at the time in Madison, and just kind of wanted to go off on my own and try it, just try something new and kind of see where it took me. I kind of started it knowing that it was going to be an open-ended concept, so it could kind of like morph into whatever it's going to morph into.
When you started it, I'm sure you had some ideas about what it might look like, and I'm wondering how the concept and the structure has evolved since you started it.
Yes, interesting. So it started, I kind of wanted to do like in-home meal preparation as well, just kind of as supplemental income when there wasn't a lot of pop-ups or in-home dinners. But then there was some really good opportunities that came up, and I was able to do more of the nomadic restaurant thing, and I had a pretty good amount of in-home dinners going on as well, so I actually canceled the meal preparation and just went right to the kind of restaurant concept.
Who are some of your primary partners that you work with kind of frequently?
Partners as far as like purveyors or
places where you have the events.
Yeah. So let's see, where have I had pop-ups? I've done pop-ups at Masha Tea Company. I've done pop-ups at the underground food space, which is on Allen Street. I'm currently doing a nomadic restaurant at the Banzo Shuk space on Williamson Street, as well as a lot of in-home dinners as well. So,
I actually had my birthday dinner a few years ago
At Matcha.
Matcha.
I
It was
remember.
amazing.
I remember right where you were sitting. Yeah, it was great.
And it was really
That was one of the first.
It was really fun, and it was really like very springy because my birthday's at the end of April, and it was just a very sort of spring-inspired menu, which I thought was really fun. I've noticed you've done some things at like Gibbs.
Yep, Gibbs.
Are you going to be working with Porter at all?
And Porter, yeah. So I met with Gil the other day, and we were kind of shooting around some ideas because he does the Porter Dinner Club over there.
Yeah, I went to that recently.
Yeah, and I had kind of thrown a couple ideas at him, and there's a few things we're working on. So
That'll be really cool. What are the benefits of having kind of a pop-up sort of nomadic restaurant concept versus having something that's more brick and mortar, open certain hours every day? What are the benefits and what are the challenges of that?
yeah, well the benefits, the obvious benefits are full control of what the menu is going to be. Full control of where you're getting the produce or meat or whatever it may be. You don't need to order in a ton of ingredients to stock a restaurant. You can kind of create your menu, know how many people you're going to have, how big the portions are going to be. Like you can really, really dial it in. I would say some of the downsides are, just the normal things that you would run into anytime you travel and set up shop somewhere. At the end of the night, you gotta load up all your dishes, wrap everything up, and cart everything around, as opposed to having a restaurant, having a walk-in cooler where you can store everything. It's very different sourcing the ingredients because you have to, if I'm going to use microgreens for a dinner or edible flowers, I can't get them a week ahead of time. I kind of have to stagger my orders because I, only have so much space. And yeah.
It strikes me that it would also take a lot of hustle to set a lot of this stuff up.
Yeah, and after a while, I kind of have my mobile kitchen, if you want to call it that. Like I have certain things that I bring. I have my serviceware and my KitchenAid and pans and tools and things like that. So after you do it, you kind of know what you'll need every time, but each dinner is different.
Where do you find inspiration for putting your menus together? I've noticed that you use a lot of different ingredients sort of internationally, like not just sort of locally sourced produce and things like that, but also things like togarashi and queso fresco, international kinds of influences on the food that you're making. And I wonder how you put those menus together, like where you get inspiration.
Yeah, so like with the menu, I'll start like with this menu in front of you right there. There's celery root, spinach, some sable fish. This is an in-home dinner. So this was November 30th of last year. So winter, there's citrus on here. There's cabbage, spice cake, aronia berry, parsnip, celery root, apple. So, I just really start with what is available at the market, and I've been lucky enough to maintain some of these partnerships and relationships with purveyors from when I was at Brasserie V. I get their availability lists, see what they have.
When you're doing an in-home dinner, do you talk with the people who are hosting it and say, because it's usually not more than 15 people?
Yeah, so I'll kind of have like a preliminary consultation with them if they have any dietary restrictions or sensitivities, any dislikes, I've had some people say that, they loved their grandmother's chocolate cake and they want that for dessert. So, I'll make their grandmother's chocolate cake recipe for them, if they really want it, and like kind of see what they have in their kitchen and what kind of plates they have, or if they have a stand mixer, I'm not going to cart my stand mixer over to their house, So I'll have like a preliminary consultation to kind of see what they're all about, see what they're like, and then just kind of go from there after you meet them.
This structure has allowed you to do some really high-end dinners. You've been collaborating with Taliesin Preservation for several dinners, and I've got one of those menus here in front of me, and it's multi-course. There's a red wattle pork rib chop with an amber malt glaze on it. There's a braised beet as a starter with orange zest and thyme and smoked salt. You've got wood-grilled vegetables, an apple terrine. It looks like it might have been a fall menu.
Yep, that makes sense. So that was actually... it rained that night. That was going to be an outdoor farm dinner at the Taliesin. And we had gotten in like 50 cinder blocks and had this metal worker from Spring Green make a custom grill grate. And you can see the pictures on my Instagram feed, but we still constructed this grill, and we used... I kind of gave it like a cantilever shelf to kind of like mimic the Frank Lloyd Wright design, and we used wood from the land, and all the veggies were from Fazenda Boa, and it was really cool. That was more family style. We got the pork from Seven Seeds, which was just a couple miles down the road, because Frank Lloyd Wright's all about the terroir and being one with the land, so I really wanted to, do that with the menu as well.
That's really cool. One of the challenges with a menu like this is that, at $250 a head, people want to know what the menu is going to be pretty well in advance, but you're working with such seasonal ingredients. And in Wisconsin, the season for something can be 3 weeks or, less. And you don't always know what's going to be in season when. Last summer, the squash came super early for whatever reason. You have to plan these menus not necessarily knowing what's going to be great. Is that a challenge for you?
Yeah, it is a challenge, but you can always write you can always at least give a skeleton of a menu because you know that you'll have certain things. I mean, I know in September I'll have beets, I can get some cauliflower, all these things. And then when it comes closer to the event, you can kind of, refine it and, just kind of start with what you know you'll have and give a good outline of that and then just kind of go from there.
Do you like this sort of nomadic structure better than having a brick and mortar restaurant? Do you want to go back to having a permanent restaurant someday?
Yeah, I certainly intend on, one day opening my own place, smaller, probably 15 to 20 seats, probably less than that. What's really important with Isthmus Dining Company was that I kind of close that gap between the customer and the chef and, really be able to go out and talk, when I do these nomadic restaurants, to go out and talk to all the customers that come in, really let them know what they're eating, why I cooked it, how I cooked it, and just really become closer to the customer and just kind of, just bridge that gap.
Do you think that having done this for a couple of years, by the time you open your own place that is brick and mortar, will it be different than if you had come straight out of restaurants and gone into opening your own?
Yeah, and I think it already has changed the way that I cook, and that's kind of what I was looking for too, maybe. Really being able to do food that I find inspiring, and hopefully it inspires other people, and just, I don't know, like it's really allowed me to put so much care into each individual dish instead of worrying about serving, 150 people a night. You're just serving, 15, or if you had a restaurant, you would ideally do like 2 seatings, so 30 people a night. And, that's a very small amount of people. But I think when you go and have that kind of experience, those are the kind of dining experiences that you really remember when you can, as opposed to just going out to eat at a restaurant. You never talk to the chef or even the server sometimes. They just bring you your food and you go home and then you kind of forget about it, as opposed to if you go out to eat and the chef or server comes out and, tells you a story or does like anything other than just drop the food off. You're more likely to feel connected with that meal or to remember it down the road. And, and that's really what I want when people are done eating. I want them to feel like they got their money's worth and the food was good and all that, but I want them to really remember the experience. And yeah, that's what it's all about.
As I mentioned, I recently went to Porter Dinner Club on their sort of opening weekend a few weeks ago. And they said this should be kind of like you're at a friend's house or something, and you can come back behind the counter and watch, Gail and Mike cooking. You can kind of move about the space. You can talk with your neighbors, maybe even if you don't know them. So small group of people. And then the food was just beautiful. But I could ask questions. And it strikes me that that's almost like the model at Ardent a little bit too, which is a higher end place in Milwaukee. But it's again that connection, that closer connection between the diner and the kitchen without so much in between, I think.
Yeah.
Which is not to say the front of house is not wonderful, but it's a different structure.
Yeah, well, and it kind of allows your front of house and back of house to become like a cohesive unit. I think when you have a model like Ardent or Porter Dinner Club, you can allow people to work all facets of the restaurant, and allow the servers to understand the food better and allow the cooks to understand the service better.
Are there dinners that you've made over the past couple of years with Isthmus Dining Company that are particularly memorable for you?
Well, yes. I had a chance to cook a private lunch party for Clyde Stubblefield. Probably that was like 6 months after it started. You'd have to, there's the picture online on Instagram, which was great. Did it at one of his friend's house. It was like 12 people. It was really, really fascinating. Who was there? Richard Davis was there. Paulie Ryan, good friend of mine, kind of set up the dinner for me. And it was a trip, I put together this menu for Clyde Stubblefield and all of his friends. And it was his birthday, Clyde's birthday. And he didn't like the menu, so he wanted me to make him a fish sandwich. So I made the regular menu for everybody else. And then I made Clyde's fish sandwich, which he enjoyed. And, he was great.
That's really cool.
And then, the dinners at the Taliesin are memorable. My grandfather, who's not with us any longer, but he was an architect, and one of his major inspirations in the house that he designed even was from Frank Lloyd Wright. So it's nice to be able to tell my grandma that I'm cooking at the Taliesin, and, she just loves it. And so
I recently wrote a story about a new program they're starting, the Taliesin Food Artisan program, I think.
Mm-hmm. With Odessa, right?
With Odessa and with Barbara Wright, who's the chef out there. And one of the reasons they're starting it is to help young chefs and mid-career people who are making a career change learn how to better use local and seasonal ingredients and to work with farmers and producers and to kind of make that connection. And it strikes me that that's exactly kind of what you're doing too, right? You're using this nomadic structure to be able to work with these producers that you have relationships with, and you can be a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, definitely. Like I did a couple, 3 days in a row at Cow and Quince in New Glarus, and I used Garden to Be and elderberry and Hickory Hill Farm, like the usual suspects that I use. But once I got to New Glarus, I was able to use like Raleigh's Hillside Farm is one of them, and wherever you go, you can just kind of adapt and
really
use
cool.
what they have available.
Yeah, that's cool. What are you looking forward to in the spring?
Well, there's the first 2 weekends in April, the April 6th and 7th, and the 13th and 14th. I'm doing the second installment of A Very Temporary Restaurant, which is at the Banzo Shuk space on Willie Street, 1511 Willie. And that's from 5 to 9, and that will have like an a la carte menu, 5 or 6 item a la carte menu, as well as a tasting menu that you could get as well. I'm doing the dinner series at the Taliesin again, the Cultivated Cuisine dinner series on the 21st of April, and there's still a couple tickets available. And I'm tentatively doing another one there the 19th of May as well, and hopefully at the end of April, I'll be getting together with Gil and collaborating on a menu at Porter Dinner Club.
So Isthmus Dining Company and Porter Dinner Club, IDC, PDC?
IDC, PDC. It has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Of course, anytime.
This has been The Corner Table, a podcast about food and drink in Madison, produced by the Capital Times. Our music was composed by Patrick Christians. A very temporary restaurant from Rob Grisham pops up this weekend at Banzo Shuk, and the best way to find out about future pop-ups from Isthmus Dining Company is to follow them on Facebook. You can also follow this podcast at Corner Table Podcast and subscribe to The Corner Table wherever you get your podcasts. I am your host, Cap Times food writer Lindsay Christians. My wish for you this week is roasted carrots. My favorite way to make them lately is with toasted walnuts, feta cheese, and fresh herbs. Cheers!